Hello everybody and welcome back to the channel. In today's video we're going to be taking a look at the all-new Transformers Legacy Voyager class Prime Universe Bulkhead. Now before we get started with the review, I first of all have to say a massive thank you to friend and sponsor of the channel, the Icon Store, for making this review here today possible. He was kind enough to track one of these down in France, send it all the way here to the UK for me to take a look at, so massive thank you to him, and of course I'll be sure to include links down in the description box below to his store, as well as along with a discount code of which you can use across the entire site. Now starting off firstly, we'll take a look here at the all-new Legacy box art. I've got to be honest and say, much like Kingdom, this looks fantastic. We get that great piece of artwork of the character in both vehicle as well as robot mode, and two shots for the bot mode as well, so a full shot as well as a close-up there of the head. One of the major differences between this design when in comparison to the previous design is that we now no longer actually have the plastic here at the top. Personally, I don't really have much of an issue with this at all. My only qualm would be that if this was to take a shelf dive, could it potentially cause damage to the paint and plastic? I guess we'll just have to wait and see. But here towards the side, you can see a great piece of artwork of all of the Autobots that have been shown so far for Legacy. So Prime, Hot Rod, RC, Blaster, and Bulkhead. And here at the back, we've got some great product shots of Bulkhead in both robot as well as vehicle mode. And you can also see a Scan Me tag, of which sadly at the time of this recording doesn't in fact actually work. So with all that being said, of course, let's bring Bulkhead here out and take a closer look at the details. I'm going to be straight up with you guys and say that I absolutely love the way this figure's turned out. He could potentially be one of my favourite Legacy figures yet, and that is something that I'm just so surprised to say, especially considering that upon first glance, I really wasn't a huge fan of these Prime Universe characters. In particular would be where their RC was concerned. I found it to be way too stylized, really didn't resemble anything of the character that we saw from the original Prime show, but here with Bulkhead, I definitely think they've struck a great balance. Of course, it borrows essence from that Prime design, but once again, has a slightly more G1 vibe to it, which I actually think has turned out really nicely. You can see where the torso is concerned, incredibly thick and bulky. I think the head has been directly taken from Prime design, and you can also see here in regards to the weapons, they definitely bear resemblance. So you can see here for the face sculpt, really looking awesome. We've got that silver underjaw there, which has been sculpted and painted very nicely. You can see some nice sculpt work going on there for the actual head itself, which I think looks great. We do in fact actually get this Energon infused shoulder mounted cannon. This has got some really nice gunmetal silver paint apps applied to it, but for the most part has been cast out of that blue, which I actually think looks really nice. We've got two wheels here at the back, a homage to that Prime design, and of course the torso is incredibly thick and blocky. I actually really like the way this has turned out. It looks awesome, and in some regards this guy definitely does give me Transformers Age of Extinction Hound vibes. I definitely do just think that overall that is really the design that is screaming to me. But you can see here for the shoulders, really nice paint as well as sculpt work going on for these. I think the biceps look great, as so do the fists, and you can see as we turn to the underside, sadly some hollowness. Personally I would have loved to have seen maybe a flip out filler panel much like we saw with Legacy Prime, but considering this is a Voyager, I honestly think that's just a minor critique. You can see here for the thighs, completely decked out in metallic silver, sculpted really nicely, and the same can also be said here for the shins and the knee pads. And even as we take a look here towards the interior, you can see completely filled out, and there really and truly are barely any hollow spaces on this guy at all. So really just overall a very nicely done looking figure. Now in regards to articulation, despite him looking rather bulky, he is indeed actually pretty poseable. So here for the head, it can indeed look down that far as well as can look up. Of course it can rotate left to right, a full rotation here at the shoulders as well as a hinge joint out to the side, full rotation there at the bicep, 90-degree bend there at the elbow as well as a full wrist rotation. And you can see how this entire forearm is completely filled out. There is no mushroom peg visible at all, which is a really nice touch. We do in fact actually get a waist rotation which can rotate the full 360, which is very surprising to see. The legs can kick forwards that far as well as can kick back, I would say roughly to that far. He can hinge out to the sides, rotation here at the thigh, 90-degree bend there at the knee, and then of course finally we do in fact actually get an ankle rocker pivot, of which I think is really damn nicely done. Now in regards to accessories, in addition to both the wrecking mace as well as the shoulder mounted cannon, of which two has also been sculpted and painted really nicely, we do in fact also see this tarp weapon here. Now here for bot mode, you can in fact actually leave it attached for the back, or you can indeed actually remove this. It's very easy to wriggle off. You can see in terms of sculpt work, definitely looks pretty decent. Of course plays a more vital role when we get him transformed up into vehicle mode, but here for bot mode you will just want to push this black tab here through, which will in fact actually peg on to the side of the arm, so this can act as an almost riot shield, which I think is a really nice touch. And you can in fact actually clasp these panels around the forearm, really making it look as if though it's fully transformed out of the arm. Now in regards to the actual mace itself, very easy to remove. We simply just hinge this section down, give that there a slight wriggle and it will come clean off. You can see really nicely done in regards to sculpt work, and actually has quite a few mech tech ports actually molded all the way around. And the shoulder mounted cannon too is also removable, so if you didn't like that look, you can see it's very easy to detach. We can peg it into the hand or onto the side of the forearm, of which I actually don't think is a bad look at all. And just spinning our attention to the back, that is how Bulkhead looks without having that top section fully attached. So overall, definitely a really solid Voyager, definitely a return to form for this Transformers Legacy line, and I actually cannot wait to see as to how some of these other Prime Universe characters do in fact actually turn out. Turning here for a few comparisons, we've got the Transformers Legacy Prime Universe Bulkhead there on the left, and the Transformers Prime First Edition Bulkhead here on the right. Now, in my personal opinion, the main reason why Hasbro probably didn't do true to form Prime representations of the characters is because they already essentially gave us borderline masterpiece representations almost a decade ago here with these First Edition figures. Honestly, this particular Bulkhead has got to be one of the most accurate figures I own in my entire collection. It looks so awesome. But getting back here to the review, you can once again definitely see the obvious design traits of which have been carried over for this new Legacy version. The bigger torso, the head sculpt, the overall color palette, and of course the two wheels here at the top. I really do think they've done a smashing job in actually redesigning this guy, and to be honest, these Prime Universe characters are something new. There's something that we haven't really seen before, and with G1 I kind of think that in some regards it has become a little bit boring, considering that it is basically for the most part rinse and repeat of the same characters just being redone. So I am glad that they are giving us basically their own representations of how these characters would have looked had they appeared in the original G1 series. Here we have Legacy Bulkhead along with the Legacy Transformers Prime inspired RC, and I actually think the scale here works pretty damn nicely. Of course, she's a deluxe, she's a motorcycle, and to me at least this was definitely kind of the scale that we saw in that original Transformers Prime TV series. And finally, here we have the Legacy Bulkhead compared next to the Legacy Leader Class G2 Laser Optimus Prime. Now, turning to transformation for Bulkhead, much like G2 Laser Prime, there is in fact actually a lot more than meets the eye with this guy. He is indeed actually rather complex, which was something that definitely took me by surprise. So I am wondering whether or not this will be an almost running theme with these Legacy characters. I wonder if they'll be rather basic on the outside and actually have quite a lot going on within the inside. But before we actually touch base with the conversion, one thing I just very quickly want to showcase is that in addition to removing the backpack, you can indeed actually compress these panels here closer within the torso, or you can indeed actually extend them here out to the back. So it's really up to your own personal preference how you wish to display this on the figure. And another really neat thing is that this back section does in fact actually seamlessly integrate into the conversion, so there is no parts forming required at all for this guy, which once again it definitely did take me by surprise. But getting down to transformation, to start off, firstly you are going to want to take these arms here and just rotate those forwards. We can then come to the underside, disengage this transparent tab from this black section, so hinge that there to the back. We can then take this panel and extend this up, which will then allow you to take this here and shift this forward. Now this section you're going to want to fully compress until it essentially clicks there into place. We can then come here to the underside, and basically you're just going to want to disengage these shoulders just like so, and proceed to swivel these here all the way down, hinge those in upon themselves, and then basically just combine them just like this. We can then take Bulkhead's head, collapse this section down, and there is in fact actually a filler piece within this here that you're just going to want to poke through just to fill out this canopy here for the top section of the vehicle mode. Once that's complete, we can then take the elbows, bend them until they'll go no further. Of course, come to this side, repeat the same process, and then this entire front cab will in fact actually fold over the top and will snap there into place. So you can see those are the elbows concealed here within the vehicle mode. We can then turn our attention here to the back, and for this you're just going to want to poke these faux wheels through and just split them just like so. We can then turn our attention down here to the legs of Bulkhead, and for this you're going to want to take the heel spurs, collapse them in just like so, bend here at the knee, and then fold this section up and create an orientation of which looks something along the lines of this. We can then open these sections here, which will allow us to fold out these almost fuel tanks. So just hinge them out to the side, collapse that panel down, and of course repeat the same process, fold this out, collapse this panel down, combine these two legs like so, and on the inside of these fuel tanks you can see we have a tab that will peg there into a slot on the outside of the thigh, And the same will also apply here for this side. And then essentially it is just a matter of collapsing all of this here in upon itself. So you can see how we've got a few tabs here and here that will in fact actually peg into some slots here. So just shift this up, and the tabs on the fuel tanks will also peg into some slots there. So just snap all of that there in upon itself, making sure on both sides. We can then take this, fold these sections down, and you can see how we've got two tabs here and here that will in fact peg into these slots. You can indeed decide to leave this completely open. However, what I personally like to do is take the accessories and plonk the energon infused shoulder cannon here, just like so. And then we can also take our mace weapon, and that too will also store within this, which is a really nice touch. But fold these down, snap that section into place, take the toes, collapse those up, and there we have our legacy Bulkhead fully transformed up into his pretty awesome militaristic looking truck mode. And this is actually looking awesome. It's quite rare for me to in fact actually like a vehicle mode as much as I do the robot mode design, and I think this legacy Bulkhead is a prime example of that. This actually looks really impressive. As I mentioned beforehand, to me definitely gives me Age of Extinction Hound vibes, but you can just see how squat and how compact it is. And to be honest, I actually think it's a really suitable vehicle mode for, of course, the character of Bulkhead. You can see that in regards to the attention to detail, the entire front cab has been painted very nicely. So you can see, in addition to the window wipers, the entire windows have got this black outer lining. We've got various different nuts and bolts going on here, as well as this almost trailer wrench here at the front. You can see this grille section, some nice metallic blue headlights, as well as some black details there. We've also got these side view mirrors, and you can see even as we turn here to the side, really nice black paint apps. The same can also be applied here for the outer section of the windows, which I think look really cool. And as we spin our attention to the top of this canopy, I do in fact actually really like how this black does indeed separate from the rest of the painted green. As we turn our attention to the side, surprisingly actually compacts and fills in really nicely. There are barely any hollow space on this guy at all, which is great to see. And you can see how that entire tarp does in fact actually seamlessly integrate into the rear of the vehicle, despite it essentially being an additional accessory in robot mode. You can see really nice creasing details going on here for the side. I think the sculpt work for the wheels also looks great. Of course, it would have been nice to have seen some metallic silver highlights here for the hubcaps, and of course some silver for these fuel tanks. But other than that, honestly, I think it's a super awesome looking vehicle mode. And even as we flip here to the underside, you can just see how tightly compact this guy does in fact actually get. And of course, he can roll really nicely along the ground. So in all, a solid almost 10 out of 10 vehicle in my personal opinion. I really do think this looks fantastic. You can also indeed utilize the transformation joint here of the feet to almost create a ramp for the back section of this vehicle, which is really nice. Of course, if we hadn't had the mace in there, or of course the weapon, there would indeed be a hollow space of which you could maybe fit some smaller figures in. But I actually think that too is also a really nice touch. Let's of course very quickly turn to some size comparisons. First up, here we have Legacy Bulkhead, once again compared alongside the Transformers Prime First Edition Bulkhead, and at least here in vehicle mode, there really is no similarities between these particular alt forms at all. And once again, I actually think this is a really nice redesign for the character. Of course, the older TF Prime Voyager figure is in fact actually quite a bit bigger, but you can see, despite him being a little smaller in terms of robot mode when in comparison to this guy here for vehicle mode, I'd say they're roughly exactly the same in terms of length, and probably in terms of width as well, which is pretty damn impressive. So once again, going back to this figure, they basically did give us an almost scaled down masterpiece when they originally released him. But personally, I actually think these are really cool vehicles, and I'm in fact actually glad to see a redesign here for this character. Here he is alongside the Legacy Transformers Prime Universe RC, so definitely not in scale with one another, but you can just see the scale ratio between a Voyager and of course a deluxe class. And finally, here we have Bulkhead next to G2 Laser Prime, and you can once again see that I actually think these two also scale pretty nicely with each other in regard to the actual truck and of course cab ratio there of G2 Laser Prime. And so, some final thoughts for this Transformers Legacy Prime Universe Voyager class Bulkhead. In all, I actually think this is a great figure, probably the best Legacy figure that I've taken a look at so far, something which I'm actually really surprised to say, as when this guy was first shown off, I did not like the look of him at all. I really do think the photography did this guy dirty, as he looked so much better in hand when in comparison to some of those official promo stills that we saw officially from Hasbro and Takara. In regards to robot mode, a drastic redesign when in comparison to the original Prime incarnation, but actually done really well in my opinion. I think it is such a cool design, definitely takes traits from that Prime design, most noticeably would be in regard to the head sculpt, the colour scheme, as well as some of the weapons, but overall he definitely does have this almost G1 vibe, which is of course Hasbro's main goal when in fact actually designing some of these universe characters. He articulates just as well as an almost Slender-like character, which I think is really impressive. Comes with a pretty decent range of accessories. I do like how that tarp can seamlessly integrate into the vehicle mode, whilst in robot mode can in fact actually become an almost riot shield, and the transformation, much like G2 Laser Prime, is in fact rather involved and complex for how simple he looks in robot mode, and actually results in a fantastic looking militarized truck. I really do love the way the truck mode looks, especially where that front cab is concerned, and it fills out so nicely. Barely any hollow spaces on this guy in either vehicle or robot mode, and in all I definitely do think he is the highlight out of the first wave of legacy figures. I'd love to hear your thoughts down in the comment section below on this Prime Universe Bulkhead. Has he in fact turned out a lot better than you guys were expecting, or are you guys still not a huge fan of these redesigns for the Prime characters? As always, I thank you all so much for watching, and until my next review, I'll see you then. Thanks for watching.